Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intelligent Man, the podcast by myself, your host, Milt Walker. I appreciate all the support from last week. We're diving right back into it this week, still talking about mental health, but as it pertains to relationships. And I just want to say, thank you again, and I just want to ask, everybody, how you feeling, and if you, have any feedback or comments, please feel free to comment on it here on the video or on the page. I'm definitely open to discussion, and I would prefer that we start a discussion, right, and start talking about these things more often as it pertains to our community, because it's one of those things that we don't talk about that often, and so we got to kind of break that stigma if we're ever gonna move past it and deal with it and address it, because I don't think we'll ever, to be honest, I really don't think we'll ever be able to move past it because I think there'll always be things where we'll have to address when it comes to mental health. From, as we spoke about last time with Pam, sometimes it starts at an early age, and so those are the times where it's really critical for us to have an open and honest discussion about these things, because then we can start that process early and keep a lot of irreparable damage from being done to our youth and to our community. And hey, what's up, Tamara? What's up, Pam? Thank y'all for tuning in and checking it out. Today we're talking about mental health and relationships. I'm really excited about this one because a lot of times when you're out and you see people who may be dealing with mental health issues, sometimes people tend to try to shy away from that, and we're not just talking about relationships like personal, like romantic relationships. We're talking about all relationships, right? Whether it be with your family, your friends, or your loved ones, your partner, any of those types of situations where you're in a relationship with somebody where you have to deal with them on a more personal basis, and some things that can kind of help you in that. I would say the first and foremost thing would be to educate yourself. If it's something you feel like, if it's something that's overwhelming you, I want to start using this disclaimer. If it's something that's overwhelming you, or you need more information and you want to kind of learn a lot more, you definitely want to make sure that you reach out to a professional. If you if you need some help with that, we know some people. You can definitely reach out to us through message. Keep it private. We don't want everybody's business all out in the streets, and I'll pass you off to a professional that can help you with those things. And definitely don't be afraid to do that, because we all need help sometimes, even the strong ones. So first I just want to kind of talk about it's common for when you're in a relationship with someone who may be having mental health issues or mental health problems, for you to want to tend to blame a lot of the problems on that. But that's one thing that you definitely don't want to do. You don't want to place blame, right? Because why? Because blame causes shame, feelings of shame, guilt, and resentment. Causes those types of feelings in that person, which could actually accelerate the mental health instability in someone because those feelings are not positive feelings. So it doesn't lend to the mental strength of a person for you to do that and for them to feel those things. And if they're already having trouble expressing or any of those types of issues, then you definitely don't want to contribute to that. So don't take the issues personally. All right, don't take them personally. You have to look at things, and this is just in general good advice. You have to look at things kind of objectively, because what you have to understand is that each individual is actually entitled to the way that they feel, right? And if they're entitled to the way that they feel, then you can't judge them on how they feel, right? Now, we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, that you should hold people accountable for what they do, what they say, but you can't judge them on how they feel, right? Because how they feel is how they feel, and you just want to look at it objectively, so that you definitely want to make sure that you're not causing any harm indirectly, right? By invalidating their feelings. You want to make sure that you consider their feelings. That's empowerment in a relationship, right? That helps your partner feel empowered to be able to share the things that may go on within them with you, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you don't do that. You want to always keep an open and honest line of communication with people, especially those close to you, so that you can maintain those relationships, right? Because that's life. Life is part relationships, right? I mean, in a great part, it's relationships, because we're very social people, social beings, and so that's part of our whole makeup. We want to be communicating with people. We want to have a connection with people on a deeper level than just, hey, how you doing? Common courtesy, right? And so to enable that to happen, you have to keep that in consideration, that what they may be going through may be causing them to give you those bad vibes, or to cause some type of friction between you two. And so you always, like I said, you always want to look at it objectively and try to understand what the other person might be going through, or have empathy, right? That's what that means, and what it's all about. But you keep that open and honest communication, because again, that's what helps to keep those feelings of shame and guilt and resentment from, again, and that's what we're trying to dispel now, is the stigma, right? From the stigma of mental illness or mental health, right? People do it all the time, or you hear people say it all the time. Don't try to make it seem like I'm crazy, those are all types of responses when a person feels like that's being attacked, right? Or when they feel that shame or guilt or resentment towards you, because they feel like that's what you're attacking, right? So you always want to be mindful of that, and you want to take that into consideration. And if you know that the person has a mental illness and you're in a relationship with them, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship, you always want to try to help the situation. And it's also an exercise in personal growth, right? Because if you can deal with someone in that way while they're going through something like that, then it increases those good qualities in yourself, like communication, patience, empathy, things like that, so that for the next time, that you deal with somebody in that situation, or even if you just continue in the relationship with that person, you can come back even better and hopefully help heal them from whatever traumas or things that may be plaguing them, because it's not always like a hard mental illness, right? It may just be emotional baggage that we carry from situations that might have happened to us, or that we might have caused, right? Again, that shame or guilt, that we might have done, and we just feel shame about it, like, man, I should have known, I should have never, and get into all that self-loathing and stuff like that. Feeling confused and frustrated about things, and not wanting to seek help because we're ashamed of how that whatever might have played out. So you definitely want to make sure that you're addressing things in the right way. Also, some of the long-term effects of feeling shame, guilt, and resentment is causing depression and anxiety. You know what I mean? When you feel that, it actually causes those feelings inside of you to react to you in a very harmful way that manifests themselves as depression and anxiety, right? Because you feel anxious about when people are talking to you, because you feel that's that defensiveness. Defensiveness is a type of anxiety, right? So when you react in that way, it's because you're feeling anxious about something, right? And it may be dealing with that. It could be other things, but that's what we're talking about right now. And I just want to say, if anybody has any questions, definitely, please, put it in the chat. We'll try to find the answer for you. Pretty sure some of my friends who are in this field can answer those questions. If not, I'll tag them. I'll get them in there, and we'll address if it's something specific you want to address. But until then, we're going to keep on going. The next thing we're going to talk about, and this one's going to be a real short one. I'm not going to take too much of y'all time. I know everybody getting ready for the holidays and everything, and spending time with family, which you should. Any excuse to spend some time with your family is a good excuse, right? You definitely want to make sure that you can do that, but you definitely want to be safe. Which brings me to another point. The anxiety and around COVID-19 today, is something that people need to take very seriously too, because it could actually impact the way that you respond to certain things when it comes to your family, right? Those relationships. And they need to be, and others need to be aware of that too. And know that, yeah, it's still a stressful time because this pandemic is still going on. So don't just, look at it. If a person doesn't feel comfortable going, don't try to shame them about it. Going back to that part, right? Don't shame them about it. Don't try to do all, because it's ultimately, if it's about love and about caring and about respect, then you respect the way that person feels. You don't have to, that person doesn't have to show up. It doesn't mean that they didn't want to. It doesn't mean that they, that they don't love you. But if that's something that they're, that's causing them anxiety and stuff like that, then you definitely want to be considerate of that, right? You definitely want to be considerate of that. Also, it could be a challenge sometimes, and it could put some strain on relationships, right? So one of the things that it affects when that happens is intimacy, right? It can make you disinterested in intimacy, from sex to, just spending time with a person, because that things, it's going to bring about a lot of stress, or you might already be under a lot of stress. And so those feelings, decrease, the feeling or desirability of someone in those situations, so you definitely want to make sure that you're considering that, and that you again don't shame, guilt a person because they feel that way because of the way that they're feeling mentally, right? Because again, if it's a person that you care for, a person that you love, and in this particular instance, we're talking about in relationships, in romantic relationships, you definitely want to make sure you're considering them, right? Because that's an indicator that, that's, if you care about them, then you care about how they feel, right? And if they don't feel up to doing anything in that way, then that you should respect that, right? You should respect that. And but again, going back to what we were talking about before, and being being in a relationship, a healthy relationship, it should always be honest. It should be brutal honesty. So you should be able to be honest with that person and let them know what exactly it is, right? So that there's no feelings of on their end of inadequacy or anything like that. It's not that. It's just the way that you're feeling mentally is you're not really in that place. And again, and always be honest. That's the key. And so if you love a person, if you love that person, you definitely want to make sure that you're letting that person know that, right? And there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of types of intimacy, you know what I mean? So it doesn't have to show in that way specifically, but you definitely want to make sure that you're communicating whatever the case may be, right? Because that's the bread and butter of a relationship. That's the bread and butter of healing when it comes to mental health as well, right? It's all about whether or not that person feels comfortable in that situation. So again, you don't want to shame them about that. You want to make sure, you want to try to make them feel comfortable, whatever the case may be. Because again, if you care about them, that's something to do. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're taking that into consideration. All right. Ms. Honey Renee Gunn says we are entering the season where suicide rates are on the rise, on top of anxiety and depression caused by the pandemic. It's definitely a time to show compassion and consider others. I hold space for those going through it. Absolutely, Pam. If this whole pandemic hasn't taught us anything, it should have taught us to be considerate of each other. I talked about this back in I think it was in the Connections podcast, back when the pandemic had started and everything. And I was telling people, like, if you don't feel connected to other people, then it's going to be real hard for you to really consider other people, right? And so during this time, as Pam said, this is the time where increased rates of suicide happen. So what do we say? How do we say it? Check on your strong friends. Check on all of them. Check on everybody. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to just check on your strong friends. You want to check on all of them. You know what I mean? You want to check on everybody. You want to make sure everybody's okay, because all it takes is for, got a little hiccup there. Looks like it's kind of lagging a little bit, but all it takes is for one second. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. So those things could cause intimacy problems. And you definitely want to make sure that you're boosting, that you're pouring into your partner. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that should be something that you're definitely willing to do, right? And just realize, I mean, sometimes you have to do more than other times. I mean, and you got to get through it together. And as long as if that bond is there, then it's something that you should definitely do. But going back to the COVID-19 thing, yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to make people feel some kind of way about that, right? You definitely don't want to make people feel any kind of way about that. We're all going through it. We'll get through it, and hopefully 2021 brings in something new, and we can all draw that same lesson from this, that we should be more considerate of others and their well-being, not just considerate of them in the sense of just common decency, but considerate of their well-being. We need to change these systems that we have. We need to be changing how we look at all of these organizations and what they do, right? And how they do it. It's time for evolution. It's time for a change, for us to go into that, right? So definitely you want to make sure we're doing that, but you definitely want to take into consideration that having those mental health issues and stuff like that does hurt intimacy. So you want to definitely make sure that you're being considerate of your partner on that. Now I want to talk a little bit about codependency. So I'm gonna read something here. Codependency is an unhealthy relationship pattern that manifests as one partner enabling another person's poor mental health, addiction, or coping strategies. The partner of a person with mental illness may start to derive their self-worth from the degree to which they are needed or how much they are able to take care of their loved one. In extreme cases, codependency can increase a risk of abusive behaviors, including manipulation, name-calling, and other unhealthy dynamics. Knowing how to distinguish the need to encourage and support from the codependent nature of managing the other person's symptoms will help. So, what does that mean to y'all? What do y'all think that means? For me, that means that, you have to be your own person. You have to be 100% by yourself. And the other person needs to be 100% by themselves, right? What does that do? It enables you, again, to have that free flow of communication so that you don't have manipulative tendencies where you feel like you have to manipulate somebody to quote unquote get what you want, right? Or to feel like you have to, call them names and down them and stuff like that. That verbal abuse type of behavior that happens, and it's unhealthy dynamics, right? But that's a very abusive thing to get into, because then you start to make that person, on top of having these mental health issues, then it adds to that by how you're treating that person, right? So you don't want to be codependent. It's not about being codependent, right? You want to make sure that you're looking at things from a very personalized view. You know, like I say, you know, I always tell people this, like, when I'm in a relationship and I want my woman to talk to. I want my woman to say to come to me and talk to me about whatever is on her mind. I don't want her to feel like she can't do that. I don't want her to feel like I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the vibe that I'm trying to give off. Why? Because anything that she shares with me is a part of her. And as 100% person, then I need that. I need to draw from that to understand her as another 100% person, right? Because we're not codependent, meaning she's not dependent on me in that way. So she has her own thoughts, her own feelings, her own mind. And so I have to draw that from her in order for me to get to know her, for us to build our connection together, right? That's how you do it. I mean, you can't be codependent and do that, because then you have to think to yourself, well, am I saying this because I'm dependent on this person, or am I saying this because this is actually how I feel? You see how that works? When you're in that type of situation, and people use, you know, different mechanisms to cope with stuff like that, but again, it could lead to some very, you know, abusive behaviors and, you know, unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? So it's something that you definitely want to take into consideration, and you want to make sure that you're taking your that's where it gets into self-love, right? You want to make sure that you're having that love for self that keeps you out of that codependent space, right? Like, look, I got to do this for me, you know. This is how I'm going to maintain and be whole in myself. I can't love you if I'm not whole within myself, right? So, because that's extra, and it should be extra, right? Because love is infinite, so it's not like it's going to run out. So you don't run out of love, but you run out of energy. Like, you can only do so much, but you know, you can always have love, you know. And so that's how you're going to look at that as far as the codependency is concerned, you know. And that's why it's not something that you want to find yourself in, because again, the partner who has that type of and it may not be a mental illness, it may just be, you know, they have mental health, you know, or like I said, they may have traumas and stuff like that, where that just keeps them from thinking normally when it comes to different things, right? So you definitely want to take that into consideration. And you know, you got to navigate it all together. You know, I mean, if it's your friend, if it's your partner, if it's your family, we're all in this together. You know, as we said before, you know, you got the ego and you got the spirit. The spirit wants connection and community. The ego wants separation. So when you operate in your spirit, you're gonna want to feel connected. So that there's nothing wrong with that, right? But again, you don't want to be codependent. So, you know, you want to be connected, but I don't want to be dependent on you for my happiness. So that's, you know, and that's where all that type of talk comes from when people say, you know, don't depend on other people for your happiness. That's codependency. That's I'm depending on you to do X, Y, Z to make me happy. Otherwise, I'm not happy. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem. And it's a problem within itself, right? So that's something you have to address and you have to kind of come to grips with, so that you understand yourself. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about some tips to help you in a relationship. Tamara said, exactly, showing sincere acts of kindness is one way to show others that you care. Absolutely. one of my favorite thoughts on that is, you know, if I ever try to do something for someone, I try to do it secretly. I try to do it where the person don't even really know it. You know, to me that's as pure as I can get, because I know I know that I'm not doing it for to be seen. So in order for me to do that purely, I try to do that. If I can't do it, I can't do it. I do it anyway, just because I want to do it. And just because people see you do it doesn't mean that, you know, that you're still not doing it sincerely. It just means that, you can still run that, because everybody runs the risk of having those feelings, right? Of wanting to be seen. You know, it's a capacity for everybody. So, you know, it's not something that's, you know, kind of separate. It's something that's all tied in together. And so, you know, but let's get into these tips, because I'm about to close this out with this. Just a few helpful tips for people. Like I said, number one, educate yourself. That's number one. Educate yourself. Learn about it. With this, I'm learning so much with this mental health series, just by bringing this information to y'all. You know, I'm researching this stuff, and then I'm coming and I'm bringing it to y'all, and I'm learning a lot. You know, so educate yourself. You know, learn about the different conditions. You know, if you go and, you know, hey, look it up and have a conversation about, hey, you know, you do this and I do this, and you know, this is how it could go if we let it go that way. But I don't feel like you've crossed that boundary there, but this is where it could go. So, you know, let's address it now. That type of stuff. You know, having those conversations. You know, having those open and honest conversations with each other to say, hey, you know, we got a problem, man. We're gonna need to address this if we want to make sure that it doesn't get worse. You know, if the foundation of our relationship is that we care about each other, we love each other, then there shouldn't be any problem with that, right? And do it together. Practice communication skills. Educate yourself about that too. Practice communication skills. It's something it's an ongoing thing. Like, we got to continue learning. Learn how to speak openly, honestly about your feelings, your needs, and your concerns. Don't feel shame. See, that goes back to that whole stigma, and that's tied into how we'll break the stigma, is being able to communicate openly and honestly with each other without somebody looking at you like, oh, okay, you one of them people, huh? No. It sounds fun and it's funny on social media when people post stuff like that, but in reality, you know, it doesn't do any good. It's not doing anything for that person whom it may be affecting, right? So try not to do that, and actively listen to people. Don't just listen to respond, right? Listen actively. You know, pay attention. That person, 9 times out of 10, that person can tell whether you're paying attention or not. You know, and you know, if you're not paying attention, I mean, you hurt that opening, honest communication, because the person doesn't feel like you're interested in what they're saying. They don't even want to talk to you, really. They don't want to talk to you. So, you know, you definitely want to make sure that you are practicing your communication skills. You seek understanding instead of, you know, just, you know, looking at things from a very black and white perspective. You know, clarify questions. You know what I mean? You know, you definitely want to, you know, if you're face to face, you want to use, you know, pay attention to body language, to your body language, and how it speaks to the other person, right? If we're having a conversation and I got my face in my phone, you know, while you're talking, that doesn't tell that person that you're listening, right? And I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of doing that at some point, you know, whether it's with your kids or whether it's, you know, with your family or whether it's with your partner or whoever. I'm pretty sure you're guilty of doing it once or twice. But if you can be honest with yourself, and that's what it's all about, self-discovery, and you look at it and you say, well, you know what? I don't like when people do that to me, right? I don't like when somebody's not paying attention to me when I'm talking. Then you understand, that's empathy. Now you can understand how that person feels. You put yourself in their shoes and you can understand how they feel. So hopefully that will help you in that, to keep it where, you know, you don't respond like that. And another thing I want to kind of talk about real briefly, you know, we're in the age of technology. We're in the age of constant and instant communication. Things are not like how they used to be. So the expectations on that have changed. So part of that mental health for people in relationships is having a clear understanding about the boundaries and the expectations surrounding digital communication. That's a big thing. Like, that's a huge thing. That's why so many, you know, you got all these people talking about ghosting, you know, you got all these people talking about all these negative things surrounding how people respond, left you on red or left you on unread, you know, whatever the case may be, right? Like, you know, that's what that is. That's a manifestation of mental health issues. You see what I'm saying? Like, that can cause somebody to go into depression because they feel like they're not adequate, or you left them feeling like they don't care, like you don't care about them, right? So, you know, and I put it to, you know, to people like this. Like, think about it like this: if you're sitting there with that person and you're having a conversation with that person, and all of a sudden you just stop talking to that person. The person might ask you a question and you just don't respond, and you just sitting there, or you go off and you're doing something else and you don't say anything. I'm pretty sure everybody was, well, not everybody, but, you know, if you were raised that way, you understand that that's very disrespectful. That's disrespectful. Now extend that into your digital communication, because communication is communication. There really is no difference. The technology in between is not made to buffer you from the personal responsibility of communication. It's not an excuse. Like, it's not something you say, well, you know, we just texting, so you know, I can respond like 5 hours from now. No. Like, if you, and again, there's of course you want to have this conversation with your partner so that you can both have an understanding as to how things play out, right? Because there may be situations where that's okay, but there may be situations where that's definitely not okay, right? And so you want to have that clear understanding about that helps you to keep that communication open, and to help people have a clear understanding and help to buffer them from any mental health issues that may come from that, right? Because as we know, that's what causes a lot, you know, between people is communication. I mean, it is what it is. You know, that's just what it is. So, I mean, if you want to be a responsible person, then that's something you got to take into consideration. That's all I'm saying on that. Commitment to excellent self-care. You got to commit to it. You are important. Excellent self-care. Take care of yourself excellently. You know, you can take care of everybody else, but are you taking care of yourself, though? You know what I mean? Are you taking care of yourself? That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Like, because that is ultimately an expression of you, of your love, right? If you can't love yourself, then how can you love somebody else? You know what I mean? It's almost like, and going back to you know, those unhealthy behaviors and stuff like that. You know, when people just constantly self-sacrifice, it's from a feeling of inadequacy, right? It's because they feel like they're not doing enough, or you know what I mean? Like they feel like they have to do that to maintain some type of image. But again, it's not healthy. You got to be realistic. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be realistic, you know, and it's very, very important to your physical and mental health. Physical and mental. Okay. If you seek, don't be afraid to seek professional help. Period. Don't be afraid. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's more and more people from our communities going into the field, and so you know, we don't have an excuse. Like we if you need somebody to talk to, and you need and you know, you don't want it to be like your partner or stuff like that, doesn't mean keep it from them. It just means that, hey, you know, when we had these conversations, it's not really helping, so I might need to go talk to somebody professionally who's going to be objective about this and enable me to kind of get this stuff out. As a matter of fact, you come too if you want to, and we can work on our communication skills. You know, I mean, because that's what it's all about. I mean, if you're in it together, then why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, break the stigma of, you know, of mental health, you know, in our community. But ultimately, you want to have realistic expectations of someone. You know, you can't expect a person to be there for you all the time. It's just, it's not going to happen. It's not possible. I just posted something earlier today that kind of talked about that. You know, but it talked about it from a very, in a relationship sense, as far as, you know, you can't expect everyone to have the same heart as you do, right? And that's true, and in some situations that's worse than others, but you know, ultimately, you know, don't have realistic expectations about people. You know, don't expect them to be Superman or Superwoman. Just don't, because that's not gonna happen. But don't take away the accountability. Don't keep giving them passes either. That's because that's not healthy. Now you're denying yourself. That's not self-love. When you deny your voice, you're denying yourself, which is not self-love. That is hurtful to yourself. You're not being yourself. Tamara says, Honey Renee Gunn says that's so important. Self-care. Yes, it is. It's very important. Tamara says it is very important. It must be a priority. Sometimes people feel like they're being selfish and then feel guilty about it. Exactly. That goes back to what we were talking about, you know, the feelings of shame and guilt. You know, if you make your partner feel guilty for doing something that's good for them, then shame on you. Right? Shame on you, because you wouldn't want nobody making you feel that way. If you wanted to go do something for you, you know, me personally, I want to go to the mountains and just chill. Like I just want the scenery. You know what I mean? I just want to be up in the air and just have that feeling of clarity, of being clear. You know, that's what it does for me. You know, so hey, I mean, you know, you definitely want to make sure that you're not shaming people for wanting to take care of themselves. Definitely not. Now, does that mean that that they can't go with you or something like that? No. I mean, why not? It should be a self-love retreat with you and your partner. That could happen. You know, but if it's something, you know, that you need to do for yourself, if you need to do it for yourself, then that's okay too. But just bear in mind that, and you know, one of the things that, you know, we talked about, like, wanting to separate is a trauma response. Okay, so wanting to separate too much, should I say, is a trauma response. When you're constantly trying to get away from something, there is a problem, and it's something you need to address within yourself, because that's not good. That's not good. If your space is not a space of love, where you feel like you want to be there like that, right? Then there's something wrong. So you gotta address that, people. and that's on a personal and a relationship. You know, you want to be able to address that. Guilt is one of the lowest vibrations. Yeah, it is. It is one of the lowest. One of the lowest. Yes. You know, when you feel guilty about stuff, you know, you kind of bring yourself down to a very low vibration. But you know, ultimately, when you understand, one thing is, you know, everything in life is an experience, and so it's meant for you to learn something from it. You know, so even those feelings of guilt, sometimes they tell you something that you need to, like if a person feels guilty for guilting somebody, you see what I'm saying? That could actually do the opposite. It may raise your vibration, right? Because you learn the lesson from it. Anything that you go through like that can raise your vibration if you learn the lesson. You gotta learn the lesson though. If you don't learn the lesson, then you're gonna remain wherever you are or wherever you were. And you're gonna keep, as they say, you're gonna keep repeating it, right? Karma, right? You're just gonna keep repeating it until you learn the lesson. And so if that's what it takes, then that's what it's gonna be. But you know, if you do learn the lesson, you can raise yourself higher than you were before, because now you've learned something new, right? So don't be afraid to experience the guilt. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that you shouldn't experience it, but what we are saying is you want to be careful how you put that on other people, because even though they're feeling guilt for wanting to do self-love, right? What you have done essentially is oppressed. You see what I'm saying? So the vibration is not really one of guilt. It's one of control, which is an egotistical type of vibration, which is a low vibration as well. And so when you feel like you gotta control somebody in that way, then that's where that comes from, right? But it could cause a low vibration in somebody else, if they allow it. Again, you know, because everybody, you have control over that, but you know, anybody who's subjected to stuff for long enough, you know, can absorb that, and you don't want to absorb that. And why would you put yourself in that position anyway? Why would you stay in a position where somebody's gonna constantly make you feel guilty for doing things that matter to you, right? To me, that's not a loving and healthy relationship, right? That's not what that is, you know. It's healthy to do things together and separately. Absolutely, I agree, Tim. Yes, because separation is easy. Togetherness is work. That's right, honey. Honey, that's right. It takes work. It's not easy. Like, it's not easy. It's really not easy, but it takes work from both sides. Like, you can't just expect to be the only one working towards that. That's counterproductive, right? I mean, you might get all the lessons, but then guess what? You're still in the same situation because the other person hasn't. So then what? You know, you're just gonna keep repeating the cycle. It's just gonna keep happening over and over and over, because there's been really no change in the togetherness of it, right? And so, yeah, you know, that's what I want to end with the having realistic expectations of each other, and just love each other, and just want what's best and good for each other, and you know, I feel like, you know, everything will be okay from there, because again, everybody's on their own spiritual journey. Everybody's learning at their own pace. We're not in a competition with anyone else, and so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that flow in your progression, in your growth, and somebody that helps you with that is a beautiful thing. If somebody can manifest and help you manifest healing in that way, you have found someone. You know what I mean? So, you know, I just want to say that, and peace, love, and light to everybody out there. Thank you for watching. Make sure you share it. Make sure you tell your friends to go and like the page. Share it out to all your friends. Ask them to like the page. Ask them to come in and talk with you about it. Ask them to, ask them to, contribute to the discussion. Because it's a big discussion. One of these days, one of these episodes, I'm gonna try to get a professional on here to talk about it from a professional standpoint. We've just been talking about it from, taking, information from what we've been learning from some professionals and just from our own experiences. But I want to get a professional on here, and if we can get enough people to have questions and things of that nature, then I can present that to them and they can come in and they can talk about some of these things. And it doesn't matter if it's something we already talked about, because my philosophy is this: knowledge is infinite, and so if knowledge is infinite, we can always build on a subject. It may be something that we haven't. It may be the same subject, but it may be something that we haven't discussed about it. So who am I to limit that? I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to bring us all together. I'm trying to bring us all together and have these conversations. But I do want to say this too. I appreciate it, Cornelius. Hey man, what's going on, man? It's good to see you, brother. Much love and peace to you and the wife, man. So I just want to say this. If you're spending the holidays and everything, just be mindful. Just be mindful. The pandemic is still going on. People are still, going through things, and you want to be kind to everybody, but be kind to yourself too. Be kind to yourself too, and know when to step away. But again, you want to do all things in the best way possible. So if I need to step away, I'm gonna let you know. I need to step away. I need to step away so I can take some time, because that's still me practicing my common human decency and letting you know what's going on. Hey, I need to step away for a minute. I gotta collect my thoughts, all right? And then we will come back to this. Because again, the ultimate goal is love. We all want to love on each other. We all want to make sure that we're doing things and contributing and building our community, getting rid of that stigma, and building a future that our kids can see, where a lot of the things that we had to endure when we were kids, it's not there. You know what I mean? That's the goal. That's really the goal. We talk about goals. That's the goal. But again, thank you all for tuning in and listening. If you're listening to this on the podcast, because I will be uploading this after this. And I just want to say peace, love, and light, and we'll see you on the next one. Y'all have a great one, okay? Take care.